I'm among the people who voted to remove LINTURI. As much as I'm a member of K24 government, I looked at the situation. I come from the constituency where we do a lot of planting, especially this time where we grow a lot of maize. So about 2,500 bags of fake fertilizer was distributed in my constituency. So the Committee of Agriculture came to my constituency and we called the farmers and they came to give their grievances, and even they brought the evidence of the fake fertilizer. So the question of whether we had fake fertilizer or not is not the question, because we did have it. And even the CS himself agreed that there was a fake fertilizer. The question now came in when it was time to listen to the evidence. Member of Parliament, Omboga, who brought this issue of removing LINTURI, said he had a lot of evidence and he has taken a lot of time to gather the evidence, and it will show how LINTURI was linked to the fake fertilizer. So when that hearing was going on the whole of last week, of course the whole country was following, everybody was listening, but now when it came time to make a decision, the 11-member committee, 7 of them said we don't believe that the evidence that has been presented is enough, or the evidence is linking CS LINTURI to actually the fake fertilizer. Because LINTURI said, yes, I am the CS in this ministry, that's correct, but the procuring entity is the National Cereal and Produce Board. So they advertised, they say they did advertise the tender. They went through the regular procedures of making sure that whoever is going to qualify have real fertilizer that is not fake. And so he says the process went. So he said, where is my office linked to actually procuring the fake fertilizer? So the question the committee was asking the accuser now is that, can you give us the evidence that is linking the CS LINTURI to actually procuring? Is he the procuring entity? Where did he authorize the fertilizer to be supplied? And so that is where the whole issue came up. But the fact that there was fake fertilizer, and we agree all of us that farmers actually suffered because they did not get the real fertilizer. And Cereals and Produce Board came back and said, we are going to compensate the farmers. We are going to give them the CAN so that at least it will, compensate those who got the fake fertilizer, which is ongoing at the moment. But the question was there enough evidence to remove the CS? And the answer was, they said they did not have enough evidence to actually remove LINTURI. Most of us wanted LINTURI out. Of course we did, because we were so mad and we were very upset. We were very emotional about the whole thing. And we thought very well that, okay, this member of parliament have gathered enough evidence. He is going to actually produce this evidence during the hearing, because it's like a court hearing. It's not a kangaroo court. This is actually a real court that people sit down and they listen to the evidence and they make decisions based on the evidence. And they are telling us, based on what was presented, it was not enough to actually link the CS to the fertilizer.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because many have questioned even the capacity of the select 11-member select committee to listen and hear this trial. But Honorable Kagombe, Nkira says, the decision was that the evidence was not sufficient to warrant an impeachment of the CS. But when you take a look at the voting patterns, it has become a conversation of which party voted against which party. And this is a concern that was raised even initially by the Bumula MP, Jack Wamboka, who moved this motion, that the members of the committee seemed to be working along party lines. Now, all the K24 MPs in the committee voted to save LINTURI. And the Azimio la Umoja side, we had some from Wiper, from ODM, wanted the CS sacked. And so it wasn't a unanimous decision. Are you, what do you make of the situation? And are you in agreement that then, it was an issue of evidence wasn't enough? Because we've had a lot. We've had people approached with bribes, perhaps 5 million shillings. What do you make of the integrity of the decision of the select committee?
First of all, I want to tell Kenyan, I sit in the committee, in the Departmental Committee on Agriculture of Parliament. And therefore, I want to assure Kenyans that they shall have justice. That for the fertilizer that happened and got to the NCPB stores in their constituencies and on their farms, they shall get justice. And that I promise Kenyans. I have been part of the investigations that Honorable Kira is talking about. We moved to all the constituencies. We divided ourselves into subcommittees and went to collect evidence, and we have very good evidence. But when you want to politicize investigations, when your quest for popularity to be the one who broke, you know, we have this culture as Kenyans of, and you had, allow me to mention the son of the former CDF, the late CDF, saying that we have this culture, or that you want to break news, and it sounds very good. When you want to be so popular and you do not want anybody else to take this chance, then we suffer the consequences that there was not sufficient time and there was no sufficient evidence adduced. I listened to Honorable Member for Bumula, Honorable Jack Kwamboka, who is my very good friend. And when I listened to him present his evidence before the committee, I knew this was a stillbirth. I knew we had gotten it wrong ab initio. And, you know, we must accept that democracy cuts both ways. Democracy is good. It has its pros and its cons. And when the select committee sits, it sits as a bench. It sits per se the way a court would sit. They cannot help you adduce evidence. They will only deal with the evidence that you have adduced before them. They cannot say that, oh, you know, in court, if I am the judge and I sit here and I find you slap Honorable Kira, and then the case is brought before me at the court, that knowledge that I have that I saw that happening cannot happen because our system of law is not inquisitive. I mean, it's adversarial, and therefore it doesn't go beyond that. I cannot apply the knowledge I have on this issue because I have to deal with the evidence that he adduces before me and deal with the facts as produced in court. So this committee could not in any way deal with what they thought they knew, or what they knew, or what they had seen, or what they had heard in the media, other than what was produced before it. And that is why those hearings were public. Everybody watched and everybody saw. And you see that the Honorable Wamboka and every other person who adduced evidence before the committee was unable to create a nexus between this fake fertilizer and the CS. If they had waited for us to adduce or to table our reports, that we have had time to move from one place to another, we have had time to sit with the manufacturers, everybody that is involved in this whole thing, and listen to them and gotten evidence from them. If I had Honorable Wamboka mention KL Chemicals, and I really wondered whether that's the KL Chemicals whose evidence was produced before the committee. Because I think he relied on what the media had said. And you know, at times, even the people who are giving evidence to the media will not give the whole picture. Because, I mean, you know, I do not even think we have the proper mechanism to analyze everything. And you know, the media will take what sells, and it will not have the actual details of it, so that it's unable to stand the test of the court and the test of law. So I'll just say this whole process as to whether Linturi was involved in this matter and whether he should have gone home is a story that we shall table as the Committee on Agriculture. When I leave here, we're going to the committee and we're going to now be tabling further evidence on it. Yeah. So I think this is democracy, because democracy allows for you as a member of parliament, if you go to Article 152(6), you just go and collect people and tell them, okay, now sign here. Whether there is evidence or not, that is your democratic right to do that.
Signatures have been collected.
Yeah, signatures are collected. At times, even people collect those signatures to threaten people who have refused to go their way. At times, even those signatures could be collected to twist. It has, the same person who was being ousted this time had in the previous parliament, I think in the 11th parliament, collected signatures against Governor Iguru when she was CS then. And you remember after he collected signatures, when it was time to table the motion, he was missing in action. And it is said, I've seen a photo, and it is said that there is somewhere he went. I don't know where that is that he went, but people seem to know where he was and what he was doing. That's a story for another day. But I'm saying that this has been used to twist people. So I am not saying, by the way, I am not saying in any way that I don't think I can sit here and be an advocate for CS Linturi, because I also think that other than the legal mandate that you have, you also have a responsibility and a call of duty that goes beyond the mandate that is given to you by the Constitution. I mean, you may not have any duty by law to save a child in the streets, but if you found one in the street, you would stop and save them. So I think we have more than just what the law requires of us. And I think as a cabinet secretary, he should have done more than he did on the issue of fertilizer. I'm not in any way trying to be his advocate, but I'm saying we must also know that when we pass the Constitution and when we say that we are a democratic nation, when we are lauded as being very democratic, it also comes at a cost. It comes at a cost that some of these things that we find so glaring, some things that we find so glaring are not as glaring to in the face of the law. All
right, and you've brought up a lot of issues, including that of accountability. You know, with the questions against the CS only on his individual involvement in the procurement of the fertilizer, or also touching on his responsibility. I mean, we all say the buck stops with so-and-so, the buck stops with so-and-so. And so some of the issues that have come up. But when you bring in the issue of democracy, and Honorable Kira, we've had the Ugunja Member of Parliament, Opio Wandai, say that it was wrong, in his words, for the special committee to go against the decision of the MPs who overwhelmingly voted to establish the committee. And he says it was not the intention of the drafters of the Constitution that the decision of the committee should countermand the overwhelming decision of this House. And so he goes ahead to say, the House must remain firm, assert its authority. This House has no duty to recognize Linturi as the CS. What are your thoughts on that statement?
I want to agree with Wandai, but at the same time, he's a senior member and he actually understands how the House works. On a situation like this, a select committee is actually chosen from both sides, from the minority side and also from the majority side. And once those names are proposed and brought into the parliament, we vote on them. Do we agree or we don't agree? If we don't agree on those names, we vote it down. If we agree, they move to the next step of now sitting down. So, and that is exactly what happened. Before this member sat down, it was proposed, it was brought into the floor, the speaker read those names, and they said, K24, government has proposed this number of people, the minority has proposed this number of people, do we agree with them? And so it passed. And that moment, it was now in the hands of the select committee. All right. And so they were going to make a decision based, you know, as representative of the rest of the members. And if that is not the right way, then the speaker said yesterday, if you don't agree with that, then let's change the law in parliament to say that if they bring a report and we don't agree with it, then we will take a different route. But that is democracy. You know, sometimes we don't agree with it, but that is how it works, because that is the same way that we're in parliament. I represent the people of Mosop. He represents his people from his constituency, but at the end of the day, not everybody is able to come to parliament. And then at the same time, not everybody is able to sit in the select committee. And so the decision from the select committee has to be the report that we have to adopt it or we disagree with it. But the speaker, as he said, it is final. There is nothing else all of us we can change. And then members were saying, then we should actually propose the change to it so that in the future, we don't have a situation like this. We need to propose and maybe say, if we don't agree with the report of the select committee, then the members should be allowed now a different route to take. If it's now to discuss again, come up with a different committee, or come up, you know, those now are things that should be proposed to amend. Okay. But as it is, the law says the report of the select committee will stand.
Kagombe, like you mentioned, you sit in the Agriculture Committee. Now, the majority leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, feels like the decision and the entire process was rushed. In fact, he feels that the committee, the select committee, should have waited for the decision of the Agriculture Committee itself. that is investigating the matter. And, you know, of course, some have said that the verdict of the committee was not the expectation of the people. But do you feel that perhaps waiting for the report of the Agriculture Committee, which is also investigating this matter, would have put more meat, more context into the final verdict of the Select Committee? Yes,
I actually just said that in his quest to be the champion of removal of the CS, he failed to do due diligence, and he failed to do the actual work that needed to be put in it. That work has been done by the committee. And maybe he would have benefited from the wisdom and the findings of the committee to make his report and to create and to draw a nexus between the cabinet secretary and the fertilizer and the fake fertilizer. But I want to say this. First of all, I want to disagree with the Honorable Wandai, because I believe in absolute law. And if you look at Article 152(6) and actually 7A, it provides for the formation of this Select Committee. The drafters of the Constitution would have just said that when a member comes and is supported by a third of the Parliament, then we just dismiss the CS. But the drafters of the Constitution found a reason to say that now, to create Article 7 and say, okay, there shall be a Select Committee that shall now go and listen, so that even the cabinet secretary that is being accused can be listened to, and so that the people who presented this evidence can come and produce evidence before this committee. It goes further to Article 9B and says that if the committee finds the accusations unsubstantiated, there shall be no further proceedings, and that shall be the end of it. So what happened is actually as prescribed by the Constitution. It's not even by a subsequent amendment. And therefore, what we need to do as Kenyans, because I think we also have a culture of not reading, and we do not want to follow law, we would just want to sit and say, okay, this is how it should happen. And that is why at times what happens to be a very straightforward case goes to court and it falls on its face in the beginning, because we had not put time to, to understand what the law that we have passed, our own law that governs us, has said about particular issues. So what I would say is that probably it would have been easy, it would have been possible to remove CS LINTURI if work had gone into it and if things had been done by the law. And you see, there is the law as is and the law as ought to be, or the law as we think it should be. And because the law, if everybody was to interpret the law as they think it ought to be, then we're going to be in a state of anarchy. The reason we make laws is so that all of us are synchronized to one way of doing things. Right. I mean, if you asked, then it would have been possible to see, I have a problem with a lot of people in government and in positions, and I can just come and say, I don't like the way you do things. And really, if I'm asked here on a TV show, because here I'm here to express the law and also express my opinion. But the law does not give you a situation to the latitude to express your opinion. You express the law as is, as written. And the law as written was not followed to a way or to a level that would remove the CS. And that's the end of it. Okay, all right. And so that is in regard to the impeachment. The law was not followed to a level that was sufficient to remove the CS. And I don't know if you agree with that, Kira, but when you take a look at the dissenting minority reports in that Select Committee, they stated that they found the CS culpable after analyzing the allegations and the grounds of the motion, and found that LINTURI was culpable for failing to operationalize the Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Board of Kenya. Now, this is the primary statute. The Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Act is this primary statute for the fertilizer subsidy program of the Kenya Kwanza government. And so they found that failure to operationalize the board amounted to gross violation of the Constitution or any other law. And so if you're saying we're following the law and we're following the law, then we really must follow all
we are following the law, Michelle, but the problem here and what the minority is trying to say here is we are trying to look for something to attach to to the removal of Linturi, and the closest thing they would just say is there was no operationalization of the board. But that is nothing to do with the fake fertilizer. You know, what we are prosecuting in that particular hearing was he responsible? And was there enough evidence to say he actually participated in the procuring of this fertilizer? Is there anywhere he actually played a role in making sure? And that is what the committee was trying to ask. And like I told you, that I am among the people who voted and said this CS should be removed based on what we were hearing, based on what we were given. But when it came down to actually listening and just making sure we have enough evidence, I actually support the committee, because regardless of what we are hearing, there was, the house was bought, most of us in the house wanted Linturi to go. But at the same time,